A federal appeals court in Texas hearing arguments over the new border law SB 4. The hearing happening today follows a stay by the 5th U.S. Circuit Court and hours after the U.S. Supreme Court approved its enforcement. The House Oversight Committee is holding a hearing today examining allegations of President Joe Biden abusing his public office. Our Washington correspondent Luis Martinez joins us live from the Capitol with the latest. The judge in Donald Trump's Georgia RICO case allows the former president to appeal a recent decision. Find out more about how this impacts the case going forward. China is trying to take over America's food supply chain. Some lawmakers say the country is buying up company after company. They see it as a precursor to an all-out war. Crimes against humanity. Congress today is investigating forced organ harvesting in China. A witness explains how China's modern-day concentration camps work. The Prime Minister of Ireland is leaving his post. Hear him explain his decision and find out more about what happens next. Welcome to NTD Newsroom. I'm Stephania Cox. The House Oversight Committee is holding a hearing today titled Influence Peddling, Examining Joe Biden's Abuse of Public Office. The hearing is part of the House's impeachment inquiry into the president over allegations that he may have used his political influence to enrich his family members. It represents the beginning of the evidence examination phase of the inquiry. Our Washington correspondent Luis Martinez joins us now from the Capitol. Luis, how's it going? What's the update?
Well, yes, today the Republican-led House Oversight Committee summoned Hunter Biden and his associates Ted Bobulinski, Jason Galanis, and Devon Archer to testify in today's hearing. Hunter Biden and Devon Archer declined to participate, while Democrats invited former Rudy Giuliani associate Lev Parnas to be their witness. During the opening statements, Ted Bobulinski and Jason Galanis repeated that Joe Biden was the brand being sold by Biden family members in order to make money through political influence. I spoke with Democratic Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and Democratic Congressman Robert Garcia, and they were both very critical of the credibility of the witnesses. Let's listen to what they had to say.
The Republican majority has launched an impeachment inquiry in the United States based on information that was sourced from an individual that was collaborating with a Russian asset.
The Republican witnesses, we have someone that's, in my opinion, a disgraced business person and someone from federal prison. So I think that tells you a lot about how the hearing is going to go. There's been no evidence to support any sort of link between the president and Hunter Biden.
It's important to note that Lev Parnas, the Democratic witness, was also convicted in 2022 of conspiring to funnel foreign money into political campaigns. I also spoke with the other side of the aisle, Republican Congressman Eric Burlison and Congressman Mike Waltz, and they both were very clear on the mission of today's hearing. Let's hear what they both had to say.
We can't find anybody that he worked with that is not a good actor. I mean, he was doing business with some of the most corrupt individuals in the world.
I think get out on the public record what has been going on with a sophisticated, complex, deliberately on their part, difficult to understand so that they could obfuscate corruption ring.
I also spoke with Republican Congressman Tim Burchett, and he indicated that he expects a vote on the House floor on a possible impeachment against President Joe Biden to happen soon. And he also had very strong words for those who criticize the credibility of the witnesses today. Let's listen to what Congressman Tim Burchett had to say.
Democrats are accusing that today's witnesses are felons or have criminal past and that they're not viable witnesses. Do you have any response to that?
No, look, the only reason that the Bidens aren't in that category is they're Bidens.
It remains to be seen when, if at all, House Republicans will present articles of impeachment on the House floor and put it to a vote. Back to you, Steph.
All right. Thank you so much, Luis Martinez, reporting live there from Washington, D.C. Really appreciate it. All right, and we'll be speaking with you soon, and he'll be giving us an update in no time at all. Next up, the 5th U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals hearing arguments today on the controversial Texas border law. Yesterday, a 6-3 majority of the U.S. Supreme Court allowed the law to go into effect while lower courts deliberate. Then, just hours after the approval, a lower court reinstated the ban. The proposed law allows Texas law enforcement to arrest and detain anyone they suspect is in the state illegally. The law would also give state judges the ability to deport illegal immigrants back to Mexico. During today's hearing, the 3-judge panel questioned lawyers on the specifics of the law.
Let's say we have a problem, hypothetically, that you cannot just arrest people and then take them to the border and say either you leave or we're going to rearrest you and send you to prison. We say that's a problem. What pieces of Senate Bill 4 survive?
Well, I think you could certainly arrest somebody if you see them crossing the border outside of lawful port of entry and take them to the federal government.
Texas Governor Greg Abbott signed the order last December, making entering Texas illegally a state crime. The Biden administration took the case to court, arguing that the Texas law violates the Constitution and that states don't have the power to enforce immigration law. After today's hearing, the appeals court will still hold arguments next month over whether the law is unconstitutional and should be blocked indefinitely. Joining us now is NTD News contributor Mike Leon. He's also the Policy and Strategy Director of the Free and Equal Elections Foundation and host of the news commentary podcast, Can We Please Talk? Always great to speak with you, Mike. Welcome. To begin with, the government says that Texas is essentially acting beyond its authority. Critics say that this sets a precedent for other states to take immigration matters into their own hands. What's your take on that?
Steph, good to see you as always. You're right about the last part of your question there, because we're seeing some legislation in Iowa that may make it to Kim Reynolds' desk in regard to this. So there is a dangerous precedent that Texas is setting. For people out there that don't know a little bit about this and the back and forth that's been happening, it was until March 18th that it was blocked by the Biden administration until the Supreme Court weighed in. So now that the Court of Appeals has been able to put a temporary stop on this, this has only been about 36, 48 hours, depending upon, when people are watching this or when it actually came down, the ruling that the law actually hasn't gone into effect. So at the local level, Texas officials, they've been reporting that they haven't been able to actually make any arrests or do anything based on this law. But my biggest takeaway from this is similar to something that somebody in El Paso said. I believe one of the county judges there had mentioned that immigration should be handled at the federal level. The federal level and the federal government institutes the policies at place at the U.S. southern and northern border. So that's where I think it should lie. It sets a dangerous precedent, in my opinion. And so how do you weigh the argument of the Texas government saying that they're almost compelled to do this by the circumstances, by how bad things have got, and they're out of control? And they say that the Biden administration is not doing their part to protect the border. Yeah. No, I mean, you're right. Again, and this is the biggest core issue that you and I have spoken about a bunch, right? Like, this is why I wanted that immigration bill to make it to the House, because of the bipartisan compromise and what it accounted for in terms of law enforcement agents that it would add into it. So I think Texas right now, it's a careful dance here, because at the local level, they don't have the resources. CBP has said that they're understaffed, and then the local enforcement has to kind of carry this out. The Supreme Court, to note, Steph, did not weigh in on the constitutionality of this. They just went back to the Court of Appeals and the lower courts to say, you need to rule on this. So it's very clear for people there to kind of understand this. But I think you're right. Like, look, Texas is saying it loud and clear, as other border states have said, we're underwhelmed, which is why at the federal level, I would encourage those in the House right now that are obstructing some of this legislation to pass to listen to local law enforcement. If you're visiting the border and you're listening to these folks, they're crying out for resources and help to be able to assist these people and move them to the different facilities or whatever it is to get the streets clear. And deport them, as in the law that's being proposed in Texas would grant state judges the authority to order the deportation of illegal immigrants. And
though we have seen yesterday that Mexico said that they would not take any illegal immigrants being sent back from Texas. So there is this tension potentially being set up. As you just mentioned, they would be understaffed. How do you expect this law to play out as it's currently being considered?
Well, I mean, now we got to wait, right? You just heard there in the package you guys were just talking about there and playing some of the sound from the judge. Now we have to wait until arguments are presented on this. I don't know where this will net out ultimately, if it lands back at the Supreme Court's feet and they actually weigh in on the constitutionality of this. But like I said, something has to be done at the federal level between, the legislature in Congress right now to pass some type of bill that can at least get Texas the resources. I just spoke with Representative Jasmine Crockett in our last episode, and she represents Texas, obviously, in the 30th District. And she had mentioned the funding part of this. The bill would have allocated some resources to be able to hire folks, and it would have been a temporary relief in that regard. But it doesn't overall deal with the system and the H word, humanizing, of why people are coming to the border and the issues that they're facing and why they're leaving their country. So the legal question I can't answer because I don't know where this will net out. We thought that Texas probably thought that they had this wrapped up, and they didn't. But I do know that we need to deal with the broader issue, which is folks are understaffed and under resources, and there is an issue at the border right now.
Absolutely. All right. Well, thank you very much, Mike Leon. Great to speak with you and hear your insights as always.
Thanks, Steph.
Next up, forced organ harvesting in China. The Congressional-Executive Commission on China holding a hearing today investigating the inhumane atrocities committed by the Chinese Communist Party, or CCP. Chairman Chris Smith cited a report by the China Tribunal saying the CCP is targeting China's most vulnerable populations.
Prisoners, Falun Gong practitioners, and Uyghurs. Forced organ harvesting on an industrial scale in China is an atrocity unmatched in its wickedness, one that has to go back to the horrific crimes committed in the 20th century by Hitler, Stalin, Mao. State-sanctioned forced organ harvesting in China amounts to, quote, crimes against humanity.
One of the witnesses at today's hearing was Ethan Gutman. He's a fellow with the Victims of Communism Memorial Foundation. Gutman extensively investigated China's organ harvesting for years. He explained what a modern Chinese organ harvesting facility in Xinjiang looks like.
Picture a re-education camp for 16,000 people. Picture a hospital, Aksu Infection Hospital, that performs organ transplants. Picture a second camp for 33,000 people constructed around that hospital. And picture a large crematorium. And now, the fact is, in Aksu, all these structures are less than a kilometer away from each other. The crematorium has a prominent Chinese sign. The air smells like burnt bones. A second Uyghur male confirmed that local workers constantly complained about the stench.
We'll have an in-depth report with analysis of this hearing tonight on Capitol Report at 5 p.m. Eastern and 2 p.m. Pacific time. Be sure to tune in. Lawmakers say China is trying to take over America's food supply chain. South Dakota Governor Kristi Noem told the House Committee on Agriculture Wednesday China has been systematically doing this for years.
They have decades ago started buying our fertilizer companies, controlling our ability to access fertilizer, bring it into the United States. Then I watched them buy up our chemical companies as I worked on implementation of programs and policies at our state level and at the federal level. I watched us as we sold citizenship to Chinese communist members of the Communist Party for investment into our processing systems. And now most of our processing facilities are owned by the Communist Party or Chinese government. Now they are coming for our land. And when they buy up our land, they will complete their chain of control of our food supply.
Noem says that China's ownership of American farmland has skyrocketed by more than 5,000% during the past decade. The communist country now owns $2 billion worth of American farmland. These agricultural transactions frequently aren't reported, so governments don't know about them until it's too late. Current estimates are likely to lower than the actual figures. Leaders in the emerging nuclear fusion industry are meeting in Washington, D.C. today and tomorrow. Their meetings focused on the competition with China in this new technology. Nuclear fusion is the type of reaction that powers the sun. Andrew Holland, CEO of Fusion Industry Association, is hosting the two-day conference. He said there's a fear that while fusion technology was invented in the U.S., China could dominate manufacturing. Holland says China has the ambition to dominate the supply chain and the developers, and that it's time for the U.S. to respond to that challenge. A funding bill signed by President Biden this month contained $790 million for fusion science programs for 2024. The conference is expected to attract about 350 attendees from countries including the U.S., UK, Germany, and Japan. And businessman Bernie Moreno won the Republican nomination in the Ohio Senate primary yesterday. Trump-backed Moreno will take on Democratic Senator Sherrod Brown in November in an attempt to flip his seat. NTD's Jeremy Sandberg has the story.
Republicans are looking to overturn the slim 51-49 majority that Democrats hold in the Senate. Moreno said he could be the fresh face the competitive state of Ohio needs. Speaking about his Democratic counterpart during his victory speech, Moreno said Senator Brown has been in office since Richard Nixon was president. Voters chose Moreno over Secretary of State Frank LaRose and State Senator Matt Dolan. Moreno campaigned as a political outsider pitted against the establishment. In Cleveland, he said Matt Dolan was more liberal than Mitt Romney. The current senator from Utah has been described as a moderate Republican. Trump describes him as a Republican in name only. The former president said Bernie Moreno is exactly the type of MAGA fighter the U.S. needs. Moreno told supporters in Westlake, Ohio on Tuesday night he wears Trump's endorsement with honor. Ohio's GOP primary attracted significant interest, with over $48 million in ad spending, according to tracking firm Ad Impact. Senator Brown is the last remaining statewide Democrat in Ohio. A Moreno victory would be a significant win for Trump's movement, but some Democrats see Moreno's triumph in the GOP Senate primary as a win of sorts. Senator Gary Peters of Michigan described Moreno as the weak candidate who would be least likely to beat Brown in November. For now, Moreno is calling his win a victory for the America First agenda. Jeremy Sandberg, NTD News.
An update now in former President Trump's RICO case in Georgia. The judge is allowing Trump to appeal the recent ruling on Fulton County District Attorney Fani Willis. Fulton County Judge Scott McAfee ruled last week that Willis can stay on the case, but the judge today approved a request from Trump allowing to appeal to the Georgia Court of Appeals. McAfee says this is an important case and deserves immediate review. The judge will continue with the Georgia RICO case while Trump and his co-defendants appeal. It's now up to the Georgia Court of Appeals to take up that appeal. When we come back, the Biden administration is announcing new rules for auto emissions standards as part of a plan to reduce planet warming. And the world's most indebted Chinese property developer is being accused of the biggest fraud case ever in China's history. We'll have the details coming up with NTD's Don Ma in our business report. And the Prime Minister of Ireland is quitting. Hear him explain his decision and find out more about what happens next. That and more after the break.
Shen Yun Creations, the streaming platform from Shen Yun, featuring world-class dance, past programs, and all original music. Masterclasses, behind the scenes, comedy, and more. Explore shenyuncreations.com.
American Medicine Today, featuring cutting-edge medical and science innovators and a medical professional's insight on political and social issues plaguing our nation and healthcare. American Medicine Today, Saturdays 6 and Sundays at 9 on NTD Television and other streaming platforms.
Hey everyone, it's me, Sebastian, and it is a beautiful day today. We have so much to be grateful for, so just remember, if you see someone without a smile, give them one of yours. I just love inspiring people to be the best they can be, and the reason I'm able to inspire so many people is because people like you who inspire me with your support of Shriners Hospitals for Children. Since I was little, I've broken 100 bones, and I've had 19 surgeries. Shriners Hospitals for Children was with me every step of the way. But more than that, they've given me the confidence to know I can do whatever I set my mind to. Like right now, I've set my mind to sharing my smile with you. Did you get it?
Because of people like you, I can play the violin.
I can play piano.
I can understand.
The help I get is only possible because of caring people like you who pick up the phone and call the number on your screen to make your monthly gift.
And when you call or go online right now to donate $19 a month or more, we'll send you this adorable Love to the Rescue blanket as a thank you and a reminder of all the smiles you're bringing to kids' faces every day.
Kids like me.
And me.
And me.
And me.
So what are you waiting for? You can inspire kids like me by visiting loveshiners.org. After all, you can't help everyone, but you can help someone. So let's go!
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for giving. Join me and bring a smile to the world with your monthly gift today.
Please call now. If operators are busy, please call again or go to loveshriners.org right away.
Join me and bring a smile to the world.
Thank you so much.
Fostering a pet for a friend or neighbor can keep families together. Learn more at petsandpeopletogether.org.
Ireland's Prime Minister Leo Varadkar says he's stepping down. In a speech today, he says there are two main reasons for his departure.
My reasons for stepping down are both personal and political. I believe this government can be re-elected, and I believe my party, Fine Gael, can gain seats in the next Dáil. Most of all, I believe the re-election of this three-party government would be the right thing for the future of our country, continuing to take us forward, protecting all that's been achieved and building on it.
Varadkar is resigning immediately as head of the Fine Gael party, which is part of the coalition government. But this won't trigger a general election. He'll be replaced as Prime Minister in April after a party leadership contest and resign as soon as his successor can take office. Varadkar says he plans to remain in Parliament as a backbench lawmaker and has definite future plans. He served as Prime Minister between 2017 and 2020 and again since December 2022. During his time in office, Varadkar played a leading role in campaigns to legalize same-sex marriage and to repeal a ban on abortion. And children under 16 will be limited from receiving cross-sex procedures and drugs starting April 1st in England. U.S. legislators opposed to the procedures for kids are citing the decision to advocate for similar policies in the U.S. One of the primary concerns is the lack of evidence on the long-term health effects of puberty blockers. American lawmakers are citing science and policy from Finland, France, Sweden, and Norway. Last week, Kansas State Senator Beverly Gassage cited England's new policy for a bill to prohibit the practice for minors. In Georgia, State Senator Ben Watson pointed to Europe for a similar ban. And the Biden administration is announcing new rules for auto emission standards. According to the Environmental Protection Agency, the aggressive plan would avoid more than 7 billion tons of carbon emissions over the next 30 years. The EPA is calling it the most ambitious plan to cut auto emissions. The new rules actually relax tailpipe limits proposed last year, but they'll eventually get close to the same strict standards set out by the EPA. The rules come as sales of electric vehicles, which are needed to meet the standards, are slowing. The EPA believes the auto industry can meet the goal limits if more than half of new vehicle sales are electric by 2032. Now, China's largest real estate company faces even more scrutiny. Meanwhile, the head of the IRS says he needs to hire thousands of new workers. Here's NTD's Don Ma with today's business brief.
All right, Steph, I got big news for you today. The world's most indebted Chinese developer is being accused of the biggest fraud case ever in Chinese history. Now, let me explain. Regulators are accusing Evergrande and its founders of inflating its revenue by $78 billion. The China Securities Regulatory Commission has slapped the group's main unit Hengda Real Estate with a $580 million penalty. The founder and chairman of the Evergrande Group has been hit with a separate fine and has been barred from the securities market for life. Now, after a months-long investigation, regulators charged that Evergrande inflated sales in its financial reports and used those allegedly falsified figures to sell bonds. They also say the group failed to disclose relevant information as required. Meanwhile, here in the U.S., the IRS could grow to be a six-figure team. The head of the Internal Revenue Service said that the tax agency will need to boost its workforce to more than 100,000 on the payroll. The commissioner said this would be to keep up with modernizations, service, and enforcement goals, and to handle extra capacity. Right now, there are 90,000 employees. The commissioner said he would like to add new staff over the next 3 years. He also added that the initial hiring focus will be on improving taxpayer services and handling complex audits. The IRS will share more details on its hiring plan in the next month. It's going to explain how the agency will use the $60 billion supplemental funding awarded in the 2022 Inflation Reduction Act. The commissioner warned that the IRS will need more funding in the annual budget to do sophisticated audits and continually keep up with technology. That's all from me today, Steph. Back to you.
All right, thanks so much, Don, and thank you for watching NTD Newsroom. I'm Stephanie Cox. We'll have more news and stories from the U.S. and around the world. Join Tiffany Meyer for the NTD Evening News at 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 Pacific.